Hello everyone and welcome back to the Paperless Movement YouTube channel. I'm Tom Solid and today I will talk about the question I get so many times from you guys, either in the Paperless Movement membership or as comments below my videos, and today I will cover this in great detail. ClickUp versus Notion. Maybe some of you think, can you compare these? For example, I'm using ClickUp in the Paperless Movement, but I know that Paperlike, for example, they are using Notion in there for their project management, and I know so many other people who are using both, and they are successful companies or individuals. So it always comes down to personal preferences or what you actually need in your productivity system. This is something I teach in the ICOR framework inside the membership, a tool agnostic approach to find the best tools that you need in your productivity system. But of course, to best find the tools, we need these comparison videos. And I will split this video into task and project management databases, creating docs and notes, cross connection of information, aka backlinks, mentioning, and so on. And of course, you can use both. I used ClickUp and Notion for a long time in combination. I used ClickUp for task and project management and Notion for my SOPs and work instructions for my team, but also for my personal notes. Why I now completely switched to ClickUp for both and why I still use Notion, you will find out in the video as well. And I'm always happy to see your comments below the video to see what you are using. Maybe you're using something completely different. And if you want to see another comparison video like this, let me know what I should compare. But now without further ado, let's dive into this. So let's start with task and project management. In order to understand this properly, we need to have a look at the structure of these two tools, how our nodes or tasks are actually organized within the tools. In order to show you the structure, I'm using Miro here, the tool that I use for creative research and so on. If you like what you see there and you want to learn how to use Miro as well, I actually have an online course about how to use Miro like a pro for creative research and mind mapping. Okay, let's have a look in this back-end structure of Notion versus ClickUp, and you will much easier understand what to use it for. So Notion is based on pages, and these pages can contain databases. And in ClickUp, it's the other way around. You have databases that can contain pages, aka docs. And the differences become even more obvious when I now show you how all this is structured. So let's go to Notion, and when you start Notion from scratch, it looks something like this. Then you can create your front page, your first page. You see, you can add pages here on the side and you can have sub pages and so on. So now we will just call this home. And within this home page, we can now add a database. Either we can add one inline, so it will be on the same page, or we can even make a full page. So this gives you a database page, right? If you go open this up here on the side now you see we have a sub page, but this is actually our database. So let's call this database. That's it. We go back to home. You see the breadcrumbs. Now we see this page. We can click here and we go to this database. We can even take this out. We can move it outside of this home page. We make it a separate page, but let's just keep it inside the home database so we can better compare it to ClickUp. So let's go to ClickUp. This is what you're presented when you start in ClickUp, and you have everything, spaces. The whole thing is your workspace, the equivalent to these workspaces on Notion. And here we have a space. So let's rename this to give it a bit more sense, call it home as well. So that's our home page, if you like, and this will contain all the sub pages, right? So what you can create here are folders, lists, or docs. That you can add docs here is new. Before that, you were only able to add the docs to views. Now you can add docs as a separate thing. So let's create a list, and we call this list database. So we have the equivalent to this one. There you go, that's a database. And you instantly see the differences here. In this database, we have a name and we have text. We can get rid of this to make it as less confusing as possible. And we have a name. Let's say we call this now task name. So let's say this is our task list and you want to use Notion as your task and project manager. And in ClickUp, this is instantly there. Whenever you create a list, a database, it will already add a task status. It will add assignee, due date, priority. You can hide these, but you cannot delete these from your database. Whereas in Notion, as I just showed you, you can delete all the properties and you end up with just the task name. So let's just reflect what we have here in Notion. Switch to checkbox, call this status. And in ClickUp, the status is right now set up, so you can check here. You can see the status is just to do or complete. So we just say this is to do, and when it's checked, it's complete. Then we have assignee. We can do this as well by using a person property and say assignee. And then we have due date, so we can do this as well. We bring a property that we just call due date. And then we have priority. That's something we can do, of course, as well. Let's bring in select field priority, and then we add the options. What options do we have here? Just create task 1. So you see I'm assigned due date, priority, and I have urgent, high, normal, low. All these fields can be customized, so I could have my own priority sets. I can extend the status, but we are not going in detail in this video about this. But just to keep in mind, we can go wild here with status updates and so on. So here we add now the options as well. We could change the colors and order. There we go. We can say task 1 as we did in ClickUp, get rid of the other. And then we have assignee, we have due date, and we have priority. That's it. So we have the same as we have here now, due date, done. So you see, we are living in a database. So what we can do now in Notion, we open up this item, this task, and it is actually a page. So if we click here, we have full screen, and it reflects a page again. And this page lives within home database task 1. If we have a second one, we can open this up as well. And again, you see this as well. And the advantage is now you can work within this task. So you have a complete blank canvas, and you could even add new databases in here if you like for this specific task and you need this, and really go wild with whatever you want. So you can have sub pages and so on. So just keep this in mind. We have pages that can contain databases, or it can be pages, whereas databases consist of pages, whereas these pages could then again contain databases and so on. Whereas in ClickUp, if we open up the task, this is what you're presented, and that's the standard view. There's not much you can do. However, you can do a lot more in the ClickUp description than you could do, for example, in Asana, but it is not as feature-rich as in Notion. And also the structures become pretty confusing because this is now a closed area. I can add a list view, but I cannot add a new database. But we have down there, we have subtasks, we can add checklists. And what all this means, I will show you in other videos, but just keep in mind, we have a very project manager focused setup here. And that's not a bad thing. We already have instant time tracking here. So that's built-in time tracking. I actually have an integration with Toggle. I have access to my due date. And when it comes to due dates, very important thing, you see it already here, set recurring. And if you go here, you have a vast amount of options how you can set up these recurring things. So for example, when closed or when done or on schedule. So when closed, create a new task, or I could just reopen the task. I can recur forever. I could even say, look at this, it should be always the Thursday and Sundays. And you know, again, we can go in so much more detail. In Notion, many and this is actually, I'm discussing so many times with the Notion's experts who are implementing Notion as a project manager. Well, if you want to have a recurring task, if you clicked it off, just unclick it. And I think this is no solution. Or don't have any status at all, just change the due date. And this is good at all if you really want to use Notion as your project manager. But I think there you see already the big advantage of using a proper project manager that has these features compared to database note-taking application, what I think is more of Notion. So for example, when it comes to statistics and you want to have some KPIs from your team or from your business, this is hard to do in Notion. You can have some database views and sum things up and have some formulas, yes, but in ClickUp, this is all built in. So the time tracked, I can organize this by views. I can build actually dashboards. So I can create a dashboard here. And you see already workloads by status, time reporting, sprints, statuses. I can see all the tasks in the different statuses. I can see tasks by assignee. And then we can also see the time tracking, the billable report. And all this is a much more project management focused setup than I would ever be able to achieve in Notion. That's just a fact. So if you really are more into having dashboards and creating KPIs and keep track of what your team is actually doing and working on, this is it. Also, when it comes to reminders and so on, yes, you can set reminders, but it's not as effective in Notion. That's just my opinion when things pop up on here and things like that. Because in ClickUp, you go to your home and you see an overview. I can connect my Google Calendar here. I can drag and drop my task. I can two-way synchronize my tasks with the Google Calendar, and I have everything in synchronized. So whenever I plan a task to do, it will come up on my Google Calendar. If I drag it around on my Google Calendar, it will update on ClickUp and things like this. You have instantly what you have to do today, overdue, next, and so on. You have all the comments that are for you, what you have done recently, delegated work, trending. You have a lineup that just means you can just have focus points. If you are focusing on a task, you can click here, minimize task, and it will show up down here. So wherever you are, doesn't matter where you are, you can click here and you have direct access to this specific task. So these are all things that help you to get things done. So I can do fancy stuff as well. If I go to my home, I could now bring in this database of an existing database. So now you can pick the database here, and now you see I have the database on my home page. So this means no matter where I am, I can create views of this. I can filter these views and just use them here. So now it's only me. For example, I could group by priority, and then you have all the tasks grouped by priority and things like this. So this is great stuff. You can really go wild inside Notion as well. I'm just saying it needs a bit more time to set things up. Where in ClickUp, everything is defined. ClickUp knows what is a due date. ClickUp knows what is a priority. In Notion, I have to set this up manually. Obviously, there are so many templates and coaches. If you go to my website, I had a talk with August Bradley about his PPV system. We have a blog post and interview with him where he shows all the details. I have many friends on YouTube and also coaches who are teaching Notion, and that's great and all, because I also like Notion, but I would never use it for task and project management for these reasons that I just told you. Okay, let's talk about databases. To some degree, you saw already what databases mean in ClickUp versus Notion. However, I want to go into more detail because this is where Notion really shines. Let's create another database. Let's call this clients. Okay, so let's say Tom, Sandro, Lila. That's now names from my team, but doesn't matter for the purpose of showing what I want to show you here. Now we can add easily all the information we need about our clients. We could have phone number. So we can have different things here that we can add as information to these clients. What I just want to show you, again, this would just go too far into detail. I just want to point out this is so much we can do here in these databases. They're pretty flexible. However, for example, Coda is even more flexible, especially because I can bring in data from external. The formulas are more flexible. So if you want to have complex databases, maybe Coda is something you want to see. I probably should do a comparison video between Coda and Notion as well in the future. But now let's focus on this. When it comes to databases, I really like how Notion handles this having own pages. So let's say I have a meeting with one of my clients. I can open it up and take my notes. I can say add today, and it will take the date from today. I could also say yesterday. That's all features that I really like about Notion. And whenever the time passes on, it will actually show me the date later on. So when it's a week ago, it will show then the date. So this is something very easy to do. So I could now say meeting today, and then I take some notes. I could easily update this here on the fly while we're on the call. So of course I could do this here in an equal way, but not as fancy. So let's create a new database and call this people. And there we go. We start again with the same database as we had here. I just want to show you we also have the option here, and actually even more, to pick phone number. We can even pick locations. So now I could say Tom, Sandro, Lila. And if I write down Berlin, you see it's already recommending me the country. I could say Madrid, and I can say London, right? So now what I can do, I make a view, and in the views, a map view, you see instantly, oh yeah. So you can actually see all your customers or clients on there. You can change the colors of this. So I just want to show you, this is already something we don't have in Notion, but there's so much more. For example, the new whiteboard feature they added. So I have a whiteboard in here, something like we have in Miro. And the advantage is here now, I can actually add the tasks that we created. For example, this person. So I want to talk about Tom, and it also shows you the status update. So I can bring this up, mark as complete, and it will also reflect this on this whiteboard. And this is really the future. Again, talking about project management, getting a bird's eye view, I could now make some notes, change this to whatever you like, and then we just connect it this way. This is awesome because I have within my database so many other views that I could use. For example, also workload, I mentioned it earlier, and now you see I'm the assignee. We can see when the due dates are, and this is instantly there to see actually how much everybody's doing. You can build equal things in Notion, but it's much more tedious. However, getting back to what I was talking about, let's make some notes for Tom. We open this up, and I could now take again also notes in here about Tom, like we did here, but it's not as fancy. For example, there's no such thing like that I could add the date. I mean, I can easily say due date and say tomorrow, and it will set the due date to tomorrow. So you see it disappears. I don't have to leave while I'm writing. It will just update here. This is also something great. I can stay focused while I'm taking notes, and then quickly update the due date to tomorrow, next week, even the date, and it will update easily. I don't have to leave the note sections. I can also go full screen to have more focus on there, but this is no proper doc. So we could now go in here and actually say create a doc, and we call this meeting with Tom, and then we will open up this new doc called meeting with Tom. If we close this quickly, you see it added here in the background as well, and I can click here to make it even smaller, and I can add more information here. But click here, and now I can just take the notes about this meeting, right? So we have something similar to what we saw here for Notion. So this means when we have databases, in these databases we can add pages. Something that ClickUp recently added, we can also now add docs to the list on the side. So new doc. So you see this is now a doc and not a list. And now we can click here, and we could build up something that looks something like we have here on the side, just within this doc. So let's quickly do this. But you see already there's a limitation. I cannot add a list now. However, I can add a list view, and I could just now go to my list database or people, and then bring in the database people. So I have the list in my doc. So this is great because now I can click here and I can work within the doc as well. Sorry if it is a bit confusing, but there are different ways how we can handle this. I just want to add here now docs, and in there we can have database views or other docs, of course. So let's talk about creating and organizing docs. We just briefly talked about this, but to make this clear again, we have on the side here pages that can contain databases as well. In any database, I can open any item, and those are pages in itself. Whereas in ClickUp, everything is lists, and these lists can contain pages or docs, or you can actually have your docs on the side view as well that contain list views. But you never can have a doc being a database like you have here on Notion. So now let's talk about note taking notes. You just saw that I briefly started taking notes here, about the meeting, but how to find these notes later on. So in Notion, we could create a new database called notes. And the good thing is now the easy way to connect information. So let's say I have meeting notes, Tom, for example, and now I can add a relation and say we will want to connect it with our client's database and say client. And then I can say, oh, I talked with Tom. There we go. Now this node is connected with Tom, and I can easily take meeting notes. I could add a property like a date that we have the meeting today. I'm taking these meeting notes, and now I can click on Tom. So now we are inside Tom without leaving. You see on the back end, we didn't leave the original page. And inside Tom, we see now related notes. So to make this a different view, clients, and you see it instantly made this related to notes property. And you see now for Tom, there is actually a node. Let's just create another node. And let's say we have had this in the past. And there we pick Alessandro. And there we go. If we go to our clients, you see now it is there as well. With one click, I open up these meeting nodes. Now, let's add one more with Tom again. But this is already a while ago. Tom. And now when you're in the clients, you see all these nodes becoming listed or getting listed here. On the other hand, here I can then filter, or I can actually group by client, and there we go. I can now hide empty groups, and now you see I have all the nodes listed. I can bring up the date to the front. I have listed all the notes that I made about this person in one view. I could add another view if maybe it's not notes about a client, maybe it's notes about something else. So you can go really complex taking notes. Another thing is I can also, write a book. And in this book, I want to reference something. So I talked to Alessandro. And when you start writing the name, you see already the references, meeting with Alessandro or Alessandro. So I instantly can go down with my arrow, click here. I talk to Alessandro about, and so on. That's the big advantage in Notion. I can now say, I also talked to Tracy, for example, and there is no result. However, I have now the option to either make a sub-page within this page, or I can create a new page in clients. And there I can add this now to the client's database and keep writing. So this means when we go to the clients, you see now Tracy was created automatically without me leaving the page, writing the notes. If I click here, I instantly jump to Tracy's information. Also for Alessandro, we can add an icon, or we can even add a picture of this person, and this is also reflected in here. So the overall style and layout in Notion, this is really what I like and love. And for some personal stuff like my taxes, where I collect all the information about my meetings with my tax lawyer and so on, I have it set up exactly this way to keep track of this. But this is an enclosed area that I can keep in Notion. And everything else moved now to ClickUp, where we have all the setups, all the work that gets done in the paperless movement business being done in ClickUp. I have the option to mention. So I can mention a person, I can mention a task, I can mention a doc, but I cannot create something from scratch from here. So especially creating a new task would be a big thing if we would have this in ClickUp as well. That I can just, while I'm doing this here, create a new task or add something to databases and so on as well. When we go now to the task here and we scroll down, now we see relationships. So we have a cross-linking as well. So we see that this task Lila is actually mentioned in the database doc. Bit confusing because I call it database as well. Database doc, let's call it this way. And when we go back, now you see database doc. That's really nice. Direct connection to Lila, and we can say open it in a new tab, copy link, we remove mention. Here I have instant information about the person I mentioned here. The person will get informed, and here I would be able, let's just mention something else. I instantly go to the meeting with Tom. So it is there as well, but still the overall UI UX and the feeling how I can stay on a blank canvas. I could close this now, and this is just not distracting at all, and it is everything seamless. Whenever I need to create something, I can only use my keyboard to create all this. And I have an online course on how to use Notion for exactly this way in much more detail. If this is something you're interested in to learn more about how to take professional notes inside Notion, feel free to check it out on the Paperless Movement website. I put a link into the description below as well. You see, although I covered a lot in this video, I'm still scratching the surface because both tools are so different when it comes to the back end and the structure and how you work within these tools. The advantage I see in ClickUp, also it's very complex, it is also very flexible, while it still gives you some guidance and structures that you can navigate within. So it gives you a framework that you can work within. Notion, you really start from scratch and you need to understand how to build up these canvases. This being said, there are endless options of templates that you can download from others and videos on how to create setups and so on. So obviously Notion is a great solution as well. I moved the Paperless Movement business into ClickUp because I want to have a single source of truth, something I'm teaching with iCore: input, control, output, refine, defining a productivity system end to end. There we learn what are work streams, what tools work best for this, and how we get a single source of truth. You might have different places where you collect the information, and this are different single source of truths for different purposes. So for example, Notion is my single source of truth for my text management, conversations and all this. But ClickUp is my single source of truth when it comes to task management or my SOPs and work instructions. Everything lives within. I used both for the Paperless Movement business in the beginning. I used Notion and ClickUp. However, keep in mind that you always have to train people on two tools. Just because we love these tools and we use all these tools doesn't mean that your team also wants to use both tools. So it's always easier to set up some work conventions within one tool and then stick to it, even if there are some restrictions to what you can do over the other tool. You will have the advantage to reduce your overall friction for your whole team and increase efficiency this way. And don't be tempted to look at this shiny object. If you're already in ClickUp or if you're already using Notion, stick to it for now. Join the Paperless Movement. We will look into your system. Probably you have already something great there. You just need some support how to set up these tools in the right way. Or we figure out that something else would actually really work better for your specific business case or for your specific case. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more of this, and I'll catch you up next time.